Hey Jennifer, do you think that Hitler would have banned the Berenstain Bears?
Why would you ask that?
Well, the Berenstain Bears talk a lot about gender identity, and we all know how he felt about that.
Yeah, and Monster Liberty has been quoting him a lot.
Hello, and welcome to Moms for Book Liberty.
The podcast where a couple of moms fight back against groups trying to control what our kids can read.
With each episode focusing on a specific book that has found itself on the chopping block of censorship. Hello, and welcome to Moms for Liberty, the junior episode. This episode is our last episode that we're covering here in Pride Month in honor of the Stonewall protest anniversary, which happened yesterday, June 28th.
That was 54 years ago, right?
Yeah, so 54th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. So for those of you that don't know, the Stonewall riots were a series of spontaneous protests that happened on June 28th in 1969 at the Stonewall Inn. So the Stonewall Inn was like one of very few gay bars that welcomed gay people in the 1950s and 60s, but it was also accustomed to lots of police raids. So, this led to protests and an uprising for visibility of queer folks that could be openly gay.
And this lasted for 6 days. And this is basically what started the gay rights movements.
Yep, and this is what is ending our Pride Month. But that doesn't mean we're not gonna keep covering books by queer authors, because let's be honest, most of the books being banned today are by queer authors or Black authors.
Correct.
So not to worry, we will still be covering lots of LGBTQ plus books and many other books that have been banned, especially with all of this, Hitler nonsense that Moms for Liberty has been pushing.
Yeah, they recently, and you probably already seen this, but they put out a newsletter where they quote Hitler. And this is not the first time they do this. They have like a pattern of quoting Hitler.
It's usually the same quote, right? Like,
yes.
After this came out, this happened in Indiana like last month, right? But we did some digging, and then we found out this happened in Flagler, like our county, 2 years ago or something?
Last year, I think.
Oh, it was last year. And it's the same damn quote. And
No, 2021, I'm sorry.
Okay, so 2 years ago. And so what's the quote?
It is, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." And they seem to like that quote a lot. They don't provide any context.
Right.
Of course, now they're backpedaling and they're saying, they're talking about the government and it's a warning. But you never...
Yeah, well, no, they've been using that quote for years. And now, all of a sudden, they want to say, we're using it as a bad example. Well, that doesn't make sense, because I mean, we have so much evidence, video footage of Moms for Liberty members that are, not only quoting Hitler, but talking about his book bans.
Right.
And like defending his book bans, because this happened at one of our school board meetings.
Yeah, and the thing too is you can't quote Hitler and say you don't agree with it, but then act like him trying to ban books.
Exactly. Yeah, like, so you can't have both, both sides. Like, it's one or the other. So what I think they were doing is they were just sort of like testing the waters.
Exactly.
They were trying to see like how many Moms for Liberty or whoever they could get on board with like Hitler's quote, right? And that's the first step into a scary, scary future, in my opinion. And especially, this is coming from someone who was called a groomer by one of the Moms for Liberty members at a school board at a school board workshop, where they said, hey, watch out for, Courtney, what'd she say, Green? Or Vandabunty? Courtney Vandabunty. And, she's a groomer, and, it's like, what was her point? It was just warning the school board that I had a podcast.
Right, basically. Like, I didn't know we could just
watch out.
Take our grievances to the school board.
Right.
I didn't like my lunch yesterday,
right.
So I'll have my 3 minutes to discuss it.
But what's ironic is that, they're the ones quoting Hitler.
Right. Yeah, they're the ones that we need to warn parents about to keep their kids away from, not you.
Exactly, Jennifer, because, Hitler started banning all of these books, and Moms for Liberty is being fed this narrative, and then in turn, they're feeding us, or trying to feed us, this narrative that the books that Hitler was burning were like books about grooming.
Correct.
Which is not true at all. And actually, we have, some history to share with you about those books that Moms for Liberty says was like child pornography.
Right.
And really, it came from a man named Magnus Hirschfeld in the 30s.
In the 30s, yeah. He had the first trans clinic.
Okay.
And had a whole medical library.
So he was a doctor he was a gay doctor, yes. Right? And so I think, according to the Wikipedia page, he first discovered homosexuality in other cultures at the human zoo, which is a really kind of a messed up thing, but we won't get into the human zoo. But basically what it did was like colonizers took people from different cultures and like paid admission for people to like come and gawk at them. But that's where Magnus learned about homosexuality in other cultures. And he wasn't a part of the human zoo, but it sort of like inspired him to learn about this and research it. And so he like you said, he created this like huge medical library of like on homosexuality and just sexuality in general.
Yeah. And then his clinic was also where the first trans clinic.
Okay. And it was a safe haven for homosexuals and trans people. And
this was the result of the first book burning.
Yes.
That the Nazis did.
So yeah, this was the first book burning that Moms for Liberty loves to talk about and say was child pornography.
Correct.
Which there's no evidence that it was child homosexuality.
Apparently it's in the very, very dark websites, which I guess we're not familiar with.
Oh, yeah. So according to Moms for Liberty, we can't even access those dark websites. And those of you, just tuning in, if this is your first episode and you're not familiar with Moms for Liberty, they are a nationwide group comprised of local chapters throughout the states, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them, but there's more of us.
That's correct.
Yeah. But typically they're the loud minority.
They've been very loud, and they haven't had any opposition up until recently. Mm-hmm. So now they're finally realizing we're not the majority, or they're not the majority, we are.
Exactly. We need to start being the loud majority instead of the quiet majority.
Yeah, it's time to speak up and send them right back.
Right.
To where they came from. I can't say the other word.
Nope, because this is technically a junior episode. We are going to discuss the Berenstain Bears, like we talked about in our intro, because, but we're also going to discuss Heather Has Two Mommies.
Yes.
And, the Berenstain Bears, you're all familiar with. They've been around for a really long time. They're still around. They're still popular. I love the Berenstain Bears. They're very traditional, though.
Yeah, it's something that reminds me of my childhood.
Yeah, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. We want to be very clear here. We don't want to ban the Berenstain Bears.
No.
We love the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah,
we love all
adorable.
books.
It's a cute book. Cute books.
Yeah, they love gender identity, though.
Yeah, which, I'm surprised. That's very woke of them.
Right, which poses a problem when you talk about Florida's Parental Acts and Education Bill, House Bill 1557, which explicitly states classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur. And this bill is actually being amended, or not amended. There's a new bill coming out that is making this true, not just for kindergarten through third grade, which is what the original bill stated, but all the way up to 8th grade. Yeah,
and then soon they want to take it all the way to 12th.
So K-12 can't have any sort of classroom instruction or materials that mentions gender identity or sexual orientation.
Right.
Which is all over the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
Which means, like, if we're going to ban books like Heather Has Two Mommies, because that's very clearly, talks about gender, or not gender identity, but sexual orientation.
Right.
Then we also have to ban books by the Berenstain Bears. Because, that's a mom and a dad. They're very prevalent characters in the book, the mom and the dad. And, the gender roles and the gender identity. And there's lots of talk about boys do this and girls do this.
And the thing is, with the book, Heather Has Two Mommies, I've read it. Based on what it says, there's no difference in how they discuss gender and things like that versus the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah. They don't talk about, and then Heather's Two Mommies did blah, 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 which, we're not going to say because this is a junior podcast, but you get the idea. Like, it's not an explicit book. None of these books, Uncle Bobby's Wedding, Mama, Mommy and Me, Papa, Daddy and Me. Like, these are all examples of books that feature two moms or two dads instead of a mom and a dad. And they're not explicit at all. They're just like the Berenstain Bears.
It just shows different family structures.
Exactly.
And why is that wrong?
It's not. And House Bill 1557, along with a few others, are so vague in nature that all that it's doing is it's like amping up these Moms for Liberty people to ban any books that they see are different, that don't fit those traditional roles.
Yes, and the new law now will also keep it off the shelves right away.
And it allows anyone. Not you don't even have to have a kid in the community.
Right, which contradicts the parental rights.
They're not parents.
Yeah, someone who's not a parent, doesn't have a child in the school, get to decide what's in these classrooms.
And I'm a parent, and I want books that feature non-traditional families accessible to my kids.
Exactly.
In the library and in the classroom.
We want them to have a realistic view of what this planet is like.
Yeah, and we want them to be kind people. We don't want them to, like, the first time they see, if let's just say, they're in a heterosexual family with a mom and a dad, and the first time they see a family that has two moms, they're going to be like, why? What is that? That's so different. And, and we don't really want them to come off as uninformed, ignorant, and, mean, because that can be hurtful to a kid who has two moms.
Yes. And, all these books that show heterosexual families, we're well represented in books. Mm-hmm. And so that's the whole point, is that representation matters, and these other families should see themselves in books as well.
And another problem I have with one of the new bills, Bill 1069, is that it defines sex as being a male or a female with either XX or XY chromosomes.
And that excludes intersex people.
It does. But there is a clause in this bill that says not applicable to people with sex disorders as long as they can biochemically verify that they have a sex disorder, which is like a huge violation of your privacy.
Not invasive at all.
I'm sorry. Like, if you have a sex disorder, this bill does not apply to you. But I'm sorry, you have to tell the entire school administration that you have a sex disorder, and that it's okay if you look like a boy but your pronouns are a girl, or he or she, her.
Yeah, you have to justify why.
Yeah, that is such an invasion of privacy. Yeah. That is so dangerous.
Right. Just let me be called whatever I want to be called. Mm-hmm. Why do you need to know the reasoning?
And in our last episode of Genderqueer, which was really long, we admit we're going to keep our episodes a little bit shorter. We did get some feedback from our listeners, and we're going to try and keep them shorter based on that feedback. But, it's just so hard to cover all the good stuff,
Once we get going, it's hard to shut up.
Right. But yeah, in that super long episode, right around the 51-minute mark, right? We do go into more detail about like the chromosomes and stuff. So if you're interested in that, we discuss a book called Touching a Nerve by Patricia Churchland, which Maya Kobabe in her book Genderqueer was like a huge resource for her in sort of like figuring out who A were. Sorry, a huge resource for M.
Yes.
And figure out who A were. But anyway, in that book, we find out, a lot about, the different chromosomes. And did you know that it is just as common to have a baby be born with cleft palate than it is to be born with non-traditional chromosomes, meaning like XXY, XYY, 1X.
And that's wild because we've heard about cleft lips. We know someone who's been born with a cleft lip, or it's not something common that we've heard about.
Yeah.
So this is pretty common.
It's just as common. I looked up the statistics. Cleft palate, 1 in 1,687 babies are born with cleft palate. Well, guess what? 1 in 1,666 babies are born either not XX or not XY.
Wow.
It's just as common. And in that, these are not rare disorders. They're common. So like cleft palate is common. Yeah.
We have someone in our schools, more than one, who is not non-binary.
Non-traditional.
And now they have to explain themselves to school.
They have to have a biochemically verifiable test, which is complete craziness.
That sounds expensive.
Yes, it does. And no healthcare.
Right. We don't have healthcare here.
Kids can't even, or parents can't even afford to like get cavities filled in their kids' teeth.
Yes.
They're not going to be able to go biochemically verify their sex hormones.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe is the state offering to pay for this?
Oh, I don't know. We'll have to ask.
Right? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to find out, you pay for it.
Vouchers. Vouchers for biochemically verifiable tests. You get a voucher. You get a voucher. Go get your sex hormones tested. See where you are in the gender fluid spectrum.
Just another way to drain the bank, right?
Right. But also to keep a record of who's different.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very dangerous. That's why we have privacy. That's why we have HIPAA. Like, we don't need people knowing, what's going on inside your body. That's your private right
And
as
that
a
goes
human
back
being.
to Hitler.
Yeah.
Because, this is where it becomes very dangerous.
Yes. But enough about all that scary stuff. We are going to kind of cover Heather Has Two Mommies and the Berenstain Bears kind of together, I guess. But also, before we move on, I forgot to mention Bluey.
Oh, yes.
So Bluey is a super popular character, and it's not just a TV show. There's lots of books by Bluey, and in one of the Bluey books, Bluey has a mom and a dad, so Bluey is a part of a traditional family. So I can't see any reason why Moms for Liberty or some similar group would want to ban Bluey. But Bluey violates House Bill 1557 and other House bills because Bluey's mom and dad share a kiss in one of the books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, listen, if we're going to ban books like Heather Has Two Mommies or My Uncle Bobby's Wedding or whatever, we're also going to have to ban the Berenstain Bears and Bluey, which we don't want to do. We love all of these books. We want all of them.
And, so you say, okay, we won't show books that have families in them, or realistic families. But we can't have books with animals in them either that talk because we can't have talking animals.
Right.
That's been banned. So what are we going to be left with?
I don't know. Exactly. You know what it kind of reminds me of, since Bluey is a traditional family, but it's funny because some Bluey episodes have been banned off of Disney Plus. Like, I've actually researched this. This is not just like a rumor. So one of the episodes was like, I think it was called The Womb or something.
Oh, okay. I can see why.
Yeah, and like Bingo, the little sister, Bluey's little sister, pretends like she's in her dad's womb, which her dad obviously doesn't have a womb, but they're pretending. And so the whole episode is about Bluey's dad giving birth to Bingo. And it's just such a funny episode. But it was banned on Disney Plus I don't think it actually, as of like 2 months ago when I was researching this, it wasn't on Disney Plus.
Wow.
I had to find it on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because it depicted...
Child.
Is it because he was pretending to be pregnant?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's because America is like that prude cousin that tells on you for like sneaking wine coolers from your mom's fridge. When you look at other countries like Australia, for example, who has, that's where Bluey comes from. Bluey is an Australian show.
See, I'm not familiar with Bluey because my kids are a little bit... I just don't watch.
Yeah. So Bluey is an Australian show. Yeah. And it's a kid's show. Yeah. So your kids are older. I have a 6-year-old who loves Bluey. I love Bluey. Bluey is a great show for parents. Like, it's a parenting show.
Okay.
It like makes you want to be a better parent.
I know it's really popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's popular among kids and parents because it's not like super annoying like Peppa Pig.
Okay.
No offense to Peppa Pig listeners. I do not like Peppa Pig. Like,
what's the other kid, the bald kid? Caillou.
Oh, I don't like Caillou.
Caillou.
I think Caillou's out. Like, no one likes Caillou anymore.
Yeah.
But no, Peppa Pig has great messages too, but like I just can't stand the voices.
Okay.
But Bluey is not annoying at all, and it's an Australian show, so it has like all these kind of, it's a little different. It's different culture. And it kind of just reminds me like here America is like putting it on Disney Plus, but only the good episodes.
Right.
Like only the episodes, that are prim and proper, because America is just so prim and proper.
Which I don't know why they're worried because, they're not watching Disney anymore. They're boycotting Disney.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So put all the shows on there, Disney. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But also, didn't Berenstain Bears have something about birthing?
Yeah, speaking of that, there's a book called The Birds and the Bees by the Berenstain Bears, and they mention the word birth canal.
Okay.
And womb, and they discuss like gender identity, about boys playing with like airplanes and girls playing with dolls. Like they're very specific, like, oh, I want, like the brother bears, like, I want a baby brother so I can play airplanes with him. And the girl's like, well, I want a baby sister so I can play dolls with her. And it's like very specific to gender identities.
Yes.
Which...
A little sexist.
But that's okay. This book was written of a long time ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
These books are old, but they're still popular.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I asked at the library, and they said they have to like reshelf them. Like, 8 times a day. They're constantly being checked out.
I love the Berenstain Bears. And so when my kids read that book, they're like, wait a second, girls can play with planes. And I'm like, yeah, that's just an example to show, of how times have changed.
Yeah.
Do I want to ban this book? No. Do I want to complain about this book? Absolutely not. Like, it's a book. Like, reading that book is not going to make my daughter hate airplanes or make my son hate dolls. Like, it's not gonna happen.
Exactly. And it hasn't happened because kids that read those books back in the days still grew up to like what they like.
Exactly. You like what you like.
All right, so that'll bring us into Heather Has Two Mommies, and this was written by Leslie Newman and illustrated by Laura Cornell.
In what year? It was like 1980 something, right?
So it was published in 1989.
And I think it was like one of the most banned books in the 90s.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. So,
not because there's anything bad in it.
No, just because, it's a non-traditional family in the 90s, which obviously, it wasn't, I mean, it's more, I would say that it's more accepted now, but it's, unfortunately, it's not. Just because gay marriage is legal now, which it wasn't legal back then.
Right.
That's why it was controversial. But I'm just really happy to see that Heather Has Two Mommies is coming back in popularity since it's such an old book. So, I mean, it's not that old. Like, I was born in 1987. This book was published in 1989. But, we say old as in just like not published yet last year, which a lot of books are being published, about non-traditional families. But I like that this one was around since 1989. Yeah. But it's still so current.
Yeah. I mean, I could read this to my kids right now, and it's a current story. It's not dated in any way.
No, it's great. And it's a short story. It's got beautiful illustrations of lots of diverse characters. And, it's called Heather Has Two Mommies. It's also a book about, like, the number 2.
Yes.
Like, it helps kids, like, figure out their counting.
Right.
Like, Heather has 2 mommies. Heather has 2 boots.
2 pets.
2 pets. She eats 2 ginger snap cookies with a glass of milk. So, like, the theme is the number 2, And then when she gets to school and she finds out that people don't have 2 mommies.
Right.
Sometimes they have a mommy and a daddy, which brings me to a point of concern. In school, oftentimes one of the first assignments you have as a kindergartner is to draw your family.
Right.
Or
which
a pre-kindergartner.
Is what they do in the book.
Yeah. They draw, and she draws her 2 mommies. What is that going to look like now?
Right.
In Florida. Like, what if a kid has 2 mommies or 2 daddies and they draw their 2 mommies? And then, they say, these are my 2 mommies. Is that going to violate one of Florida's bills?
Right. If another child says, how do you have 2 mommies? Can a teacher explain that? Or will she get fired?
According to this bill, which used to be K3, now it's K8.
Right.
A teacher, in my interpretation, which the bill is very vague, but in my interpretation is a teacher cannot explain that sometimes families have 2 mommies or 2 daddies because that's sexual orientation.
But they can explain a mom and a dad.
Right. Well, I mean, it depends on how you interpret the bill. A lot of people, there are lawsuits against some of these bills, and some of the lawsuits are saying, well, okay, if this is the law, now you can't talk about a mommy and a daddy.
Yeah.
Or a husband and a wife.
Well, what you're saying about them being vague, the ACLU specifically said that that's intentional.
Yeah.
They want to be very vague, they want to confuse, and they want us to just overcompensate,
Which is what's happening with teachers.
Yes.
Who are afraid to get fired. Mm-hmm. It's hard to put food on the table and keep a roof over your head for your family. The last thing you're going to do is compromise your only source of income by saying, yeah, it's okay to have 2 mommies.
Yeah, and some people are also, don't understand that. Oh, why aren't teachers just standing up? Well, they can't.
No.
If you speak up, you either get fired or, they start pushing you out.
Yeah, they start like creating a paper trail of, and not even some schools I've heard of will, they won't even say, oh, you violated House Bill 1557, so you're fired. They'll be like, oh, well, you came in late a couple of times last week. Just like try to create a reason to fire them. And then, but at the same time, it's like teachers are also quitting left and right.
Yes.
So the ones that can afford to quit and go find work somewhere else, good for them. But that's putting schools in a really difficult situation. And these House bills are only making it harder to find good teachers.
Yeah.
Or just teachers, even bad teachers, which exist, by the way.
That's what worries me, is that if all these good teachers, the ones that do speak up, right? If they do speak up, we're losing a good teacher. If they don't speak up, we still have good teachers there. But if they start leaving, who are we going to get stuck with?
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of horrific, teachers?
Teacher that is proud to follow these House bills, right?
Exactly.
Which I'm not. If I was a teacher, I would not be proud to follow these House bills. I would maybe be forced to follow these House bills so that I could keep putting food on the table for my family. Yeah.
I would prefer that, I guess, over having this crazy teacher that wants to tell my child
it's wrong. Yeah. So I mean, this is a beautiful book, and I love how when they draw pictures of their families and they put them up on the walls, no one even says anything. They're not like, why do you have two mommies?
Right. Nobody questions it, and they all have different families. Shows a family with their stepdad. Another one shows their grandparents.
Yeah. Non-traditional families.
Right. We're not all in a mom and dad and kids family situation. There's grandparents that are raising children. There's two moms, two dads, stepmoms.
One mom.
One mom.
Yeah.
Single parent homes are very common.
And I actually read somewhere too that like it's becoming more of a norm that grandparents are raising their children. So like the idea of traditional families was like around in the 50s. But since then it has evolved and changed. But most of these legislators want to go back to the 50s.
Right.
They're like, we like the America where, everything was simpler, back where, families were men and women and black people didn't marry white people and, all that kind of stuff.
All that garbage.
Yeah. Back when things were simple. If you ever hear someone say, oh, things were so much simpler back then, you're like, well, what do you mean? Like, are you racist? Are you sexist? Like, did you like it when black people couldn't drink from the same water fountain and women couldn't, get a job or have a credit card without their husband?
And when you ask them that, no, that's not what I meant.
Well, then think about it.
Right. That's exactly what it was like back then. It might have been good for you, but not for everybody else.
But yeah, that's pretty much the book. Like then her moms come and pick her up and she's like, this is the mommy I like the most. And then this is the other mommy I like the most. And then they go home and have ginger snap cookies.
Right. 2 ginger snap cookies.
Because, 2. 2 is 2 like a bad number here? I don't know. Takes 2 to tango.
Right.
The other books that we just sort of wanted to compare to this beautiful book, again, were the Berenstain Bears. There's one book called He Bear, She Bear. Have you heard of He Bear, She Bear?
No.
So it's literally called He Bear, She Bear by the Berenstain Bears. And it's like a poem. And it's a cute book. It's basically saying it doesn't matter if you're a he or a she. You can be whatever you want to be.
Okay.
So it's a cute book. But here's a line from it. I'm a father. I'm a he. A father's something you could be. I'm a mother. I'm a she. A mother something you could be. And tell me how that is not gender identity.
Right.
Like you're gonna have to if we're even though these bills are vague.
Pronouns they're using.
And the bills, the new bill 1069 I think explicitly says you cannot use pronouns that don't match your chromosomes. First of all, how do you know what my chromosomes look like?
Invasive.
Yep. That don't match your natural hormones. How do you know what my natural hormones are? Are you asking me for a medical test so that I can prove that these are my pronouns?
Right.
And lastly, their genitalia.
And you know what?
Which, I'm sorry, who's the groomer?
Speaking
You want to
of
go
that,
look at their genitalia to make sure that their pronouns are right? I can just imagine a teacher being like, oh, well, if you really are a he, show me your genitalia. And yes, this is a junior podcast because genitalia is not a bad word.
Right, it's not. And speaking on that, there was a 9-year-old girl recently at a track meet where she was being accused of being trans by another parent.
Oh, that's
because
right.
Because it was, their granddaughter lost.
And she just had short hair.
Short hair.
Oh my gosh, that's a groomer.
And we're going to see this happen a lot more because of laws like this, and this is what we're encouraging with these laws.
Because Ron DeSantis and all the other sleazy politicians out there that are making these bills, it's basically, like you said, it's giving permission to these ignorant, homophobic, hateful people to start calling out our innocent kids for having short hair.
Right.
Or even for being trans. Like, that's not your kid.
Right.
Don't you want your kid to be happy and not depressed?
And it goes back to parental rights, right? it's parental rights until you don't like what you
Exactly.
see. And then suddenly you're going to come and tell me how I need to parent.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, this is still a junior episode. No, and actually we might have to call it something other than a junior episode because like these episodes aren't for kids to listen to, but we do recognize that a lot of parents listen to these episodes and it's safe to listen to in the car.
And we're discussing junior books.
Yes, that too. So yeah, we can keep calling it junior. Yeah.
And we see reference to gender and traditional families all the time in books. Like popular books that always show families are books like
Pinkalicious,
Peppa Pig.
Freaking Peppa
Pig. But their family's always shown. They have a whole family tree in the first pages. Another one is Daniel Tiger. They're always showing the family structure.
Yeah.
So if we can't show different types of family structures, then this one can't be okay
Exactly.
either.
And it's not like the book that we just covered, Heather Has Two Mommies. It's called Heather Has Two Mommies. It's not called My Moms Are Gay.
Right.
Which it would be fine if it was, because I don't think gay is a bad word. But it's called Heather Has Two Mommies as a way to introduce non-traditional family concepts to young kids.
Exactly. And we just had another teacher fired in Georgia over reading a book.
I didn't hear about this.
No, she got fired for reading My Shadow is Purple.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so another good book. Highly recommend. But, it's just about differences. How we're different, how we're unique, and people are getting fired over it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
There are so many books that we could cover, like My Shadow is Purple, Sam is My Sister.
Yes.
There's so many great children's picture books out there. But, it's just, we're just going to be doing this podcast for years and years and years.
We'll be here forever.
But yeah, I mean, one more thing I want to say about the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
There's another book called No Girls Allowed.
Okay.
And at first you're like, what kind of book is this? But no, it's actually a really cute book. I like, the brother's like, no girls allowed. And, it's just sort of a normal thing that kids do. Again, we don't want to ban it. But there's a really funny quote that I like that the dad bear says. And he says, it's not whether you're a he or a she that counts.
Huh.
It's how you play the game, or it's like how you treat your friends, which I'm like, yeah, that's a really good message.
Right.
It doesn't.
I just said they were sexist.
Yeah.
That's pretty
No, Berenstain Bears is traditional. I think they're just sort of, sometimes they're outdated. They're very traditional, but the messages are great.
Right.
I love the messages, but I just love that. It's not whether you're a he or she that counts, and I think that we can learn a lot from just that line. Like, pronouns don't matter. I mean, they do matter because they're validating to you as a person. They make you feel like who you really are inside. But who cares if you want to be a he or a she or a they or an M? You can be whatever you want to be.
Right. At the end of the day, be who you want to be.
Exactly.
Not who they tell you to be.
Exactly.
Pride Month ends tomorrow, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop covering these books. We still have Melissa to cover. Mm-hmm. And
Last Night at the Telegraph Club. Was that what it's called? Last Night at the Telegraph Club?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Melissa, also known as George, but renamed to Melissa.
Yes.
And then Last Night at the Telegraph Club, two very great examples of queer books. I would say that Melissa could be a junior one.
I think so too.
Yes.
Because it's like an elementary school book.
Yeah. Yeah, my 10-year-old read it and she really liked it. So yeah, our next episodes will be one of those. We don't know which one. It'll be one of those. So remember to like and subscribe if you can, wherever you get your podcasts.
And follow us on our socials.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Yep, and our handle is Moms for Book Liberty.
Yeah.
The number 4, or is it?
I think for some it's the number 4.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like Twitter, because Twitter is so it's Moms the number 4 Book Lib because it's so short. It has to be short. But yeah, our other handles are Moms for Book Liberty on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook.
Yes.
And we would really appreciate it if you could leave a review.
Yeah, that would be great. Because
Moms for Liberty has been leaving us reviews.
Yeah, they finally figured us out and they're not happy.
No, they're saying that we're impersonating them, which I'm sorry, but we don't want to impersonate hate groups, do we? Or extremist groups.
Not at all.
And these are Moms for Liberty is officially an extremist group.
Yes.
And we don't want to impersonate them. We're just moms who love books and liberty.
Yeah, we thought having books in our title, not our title, but our name, would kind of set it straight that we're not with them.
But they keep calling us Moms for Liberty books.
Right.
We're moms for book liberty, not
Get it
moms
right,
for
damn
liberty books. It's okay. So yeah, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts and click that little like and subscribe button. It'll really help us a lot.
And we'll see you next time
Remember, they can't take books away from you.
if you've already read them.